Welcome to Eden Notes, where we take a deep dive into the Bible, exploring every chapter with clarity and meaning. In our previous videos, we studied Genesis chapters 1 through 6, so if you haven't watched those yet, make sure to check them out. And don't forget to like and subscribe to help us spread God's word and to stay updated as we continue through the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 7 continues the unfolding story of Noah, a man who found favor in the eyes of the Lord when the world around him was filled with violence, corruption, and moral collapse. In the previous chapter, God revealed his sorrow over humanity's wickedness and declared his plan to cleanse the earth with a great flood. He instructed Noah to build an ark, gave him precise dimensions, and explained that a remnant of life would be preserved through him. Chapter 7 opens after the ark has been completed, after Noah has obeyed every instruction, and now the time has come for God to carry out his word. This chapter focuses on the moment the flood begins, the gathering of the animals, the entering of the ark, and the unfolding of God's judgment upon the earth. The chapter begins with God speaking directly to Noah again, reaffirming his relationship with him. The Lord tells Noah in Genesis 7 verse 1 to enter the ark, saying that he has seen Noah as righteous in his generation. This moment highlights the personal connection between God and Noah, because before judgment falls on the world, God ensures that the one who walks faithfully with him is protected. God then instructs Noah to take with him not only his wife, his sons, and his sons' wives, but also specific numbers of animals. God explains that Noah is to take 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal and 1 pair of every unclean animal, along with 7 pairs of birds. These instructions appear in Genesis 7 verses 2 and 3, and they show that even before the law of Moses was given, God already had a distinction between clean and unclean animals. The emphasis on clean animals also hints at their future purpose for sacrifices and for sustaining life once the flood recedes. The Lord then tells Noah that in 7 days the rain will begin, and that he will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, as stated in verse 4. This 7-day window is significant. It suggests a final period of preparation, a final moment of waiting, and perhaps even a final opportunity for anyone outside the ark to reflect on Noah's message. Noah had spent decades building the ark and warning about the coming judgment, and yet only his family responded. That final week may have been silent, heavy, and filled with anticipation. But Noah does not waver. Genesis 7 verse 5 emphasizes his obedience, saying again that Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. Then Noah enters the ark with his family. Noah is 600 years old at this time, as noted in verse 6, which shows how long lifespans were in the early chapters of Genesis. As he enters the ark, animals begin to gather just as God commanded. The text makes it clear that the animals did not come because Noah hunted them down, but because God brought them. 2 of every living creature approached the ark, male and female, and 7 pairs of every clean creature. Genesis 7 verses 8 and 9 explain that they came to Noah and entered the ark, and this preserves the idea that God himself orchestrated this moment. It is a picture of divine order in the midst of coming chaos. The world outside is corrupt, violent, and spiraling into destruction, but inside the ark there is purposeful movement, cooperation, and preparation rooted in God's sovereignty. After the 7 days pass, the rain begins. Genesis 7 verse 10 says that the waters of the flood came upon the earth after the 7 days were completed, and in verse 11 we are told that the fountains of the great deep burst open and the windows of heaven were opened. This description shows that the flood was not simply rain falling from the sky. It was a global release of water from above and below. The phrase, fountains of the great deep, suggests massive geological activity, perhaps earthquakes or eruptions that released underground water systems. The windows of heaven describe a torrential outpouring of water from the skies. The combined imagery creates a sense of overwhelming force. The flood is not a natural event. It is a divine act of judgment. Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives are sealed inside the ark at this time. Genesis 7 verse 16 includes one of the most powerful and intimate lines in the entire story. The Lord shut him in. This small phrase carries enormous meaning. It shows that God himself closed the door. It shows finality, protection, and separation. The door is not closed by Noah, and not by any human. The Lord seals the ark, signifying both safety for the righteous and the closing of the opportunity for the world outside. Once God shuts the door, judgment begins. This moment symbolizes God's authority over salvation. He is the one who makes a way, and He is the one who secures those who trust in Him. The rain falls for 40 days and 40 nights, exactly as God said it would. The waters rise and lift the ark above the earth. The description in Genesis 7 verses 17 through 19 is vivid. The water increases and begins to cover the land. It lifts the ark, carries it, and eventually becomes so great that all the high mountains under the entire heavens are covered. The text emphasizes that the water rose more than 15 cubits above the mountains. This detail makes it clear that the flood was not local, not a regional event, but global, covering every high point on earth. The language of "under the whole heaven" underscores the totality of the judgment. Everything that lived on dry land and had the breath of life in its nostrils died, as stated in verse 22. This level of destruction reflects the severity of human wickedness described in chapter 6. As the chapter continues, the narrative slows to describe the overwhelming effects. All living creatures are wiped out except those inside the ark. Genesis 7 verse 23 says that every living thing was destroyed from the earth except Noah and those with him. This single sentence reinforces both judgment and mercy. The flood is complete, total, and devastating. But the ark floats above the waters as a symbol of hope, covenant, and preservation. In the midst of destruction, God has kept His promise to preserve Noah. The floodwaters then dominate the earth for a long period. Genesis 7 verse 24 states that the waters prevailed for 150 days. This long duration allows the earth to be cleansed, stripped of corruption, and prepared for renewal. There is a deep emotional dimension to this chapter, even though the text presents events in a factual and structured way. When we imagine the sound of the rain falling for the first time, the trembling of the earth as the deep bursts open, the rising waters swallowing cities, forests, and mountains, and the ark drifting on a vast, endless ocean, we feel the weight of divine judgment. Yet at the same time, we feel the weight of divine faithfulness. Noah stands as a witness that even when the world collapses under its own violence, God remains attentive to those who walk with Him. Genesis chapter 7 also reminds us of the importance of obedience. Noah does not argue with God. He does not delay. He does not pick and choose which commands he wants to follow. The text repeatedly highlights that Noah did everything the Lord commanded him. This obedience becomes the very means by which life is preserved. The ark is not just a boat. It is the physical expression of Noah's faithfulness. Every beam, every plank, and every nail represents trust in God's word. Another powerful theme in this chapter is separation. The flood divides the world into two groups, those inside the ark and those outside. This distinction is not based on strength, intelligence, or popularity, but on righteousness and obedience. God sees Noah's heart, sees his integrity, and invites him into safety. The sealing of the ark shows that when God provides a way of escape, it must be entered by faith before judgment arrives. The presence of the animals also carries symbolic meaning. They represent the continuation of creation. Even though humanity's corruption has brought destruction, God still values His creation and ensures that creatures of every kind will survive. This reinforces the idea that the flood is not an act of hatred, it is an act of cleansing. God is not abandoning creation. He is restoring it through judgment and renewal. As the chapter ends, we are left with the image of the ark floating on the waters, rocking gently on the surface of a world that has been completely transformed. Everything familiar has disappeared. The land is gone. The mountains are underwater. The sky is still heavy with clouds. But the ark remains. Noah remains. God's promise remains. Though the earth is silent under the weight of judgment, hope is preserved for the future. Genesis chapter 7 is a story of divine justice, divine mercy, and divine faithfulness. It marks the moment when God confronts human wickedness yet preserves a remnant. It shows how seriously God takes righteousness, obedience, and corruption. It shows that God's patience has limits, but His mercy never fails those who trust Him. When combined with the chapters before and after, this passage forms part of one of the most important narratives in the Bible. It sets the stage for God's covenant with Noah, for the future of humanity, and for the enduring theme that when God warns, he also provides a way of salvation. The floodwaters rise, but so does the ark. Judgment falls, but mercy floats above it. The world is wiped clean, but a new beginning is already inside the ark, waiting for the waters to recede. Thanks for watching this breakdown of Genesis chapter 7. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter as we continue our journey through the Bible here on Eden Notes.